I told my dad he was a terrible father and I want no contact. I said it at my grandma's 80th birthday lunch. 20 people in a restaurant she'd been excited about for months, and my dad sitting 3 seats down from me doing what he always did at family occasions, performing the version of himself that had nothing to do with the man I grew up with. My dad is charming. That's the thing people never understand when I try to explain it. He's the kind of man who makes waiters laugh and remembers everyone's drink orders and gives toasts that make rooms go quiet in the good way. He is also the man who missed every single one of my football matches for 6 years because something always came up. Who forgot my birthday twice and made me feel guilty for mentioning it. Who told me when I was 16 that I needed to toughen up when I came to him about something that had been happening at school that I'd spent 3 weeks working up the courage to say out loud. I never came to him about anything again after that. I have a son of my own now, Finn, who is 4. I've spent 4 years watching myself parent and understanding with a clarity I couldn't have had before exactly what my dad chose not to do. Every time I show up for Finn, I understand it more. Every time I cancel something that isn't Finn, I understand it more. I'd built an entire way of being a father specifically in opposition to the one I'd had, and I'd never once said that out loud to the man responsible. My dad had been on good behavior all lunch, laughing, attentive, the full performance. My grandma was glowing at the head of the table. Then my dad started telling a story about me as a kid, framed as affectionate but always landing slightly wrong the way his stories did. He said I'd been a sensitive boy who needed a lot of reassurance, and he'd always worried about whether I'd be able to handle the real world. He said it with a smile, in front of my wife, my grandma, and 15 other people while I sat 3 seats down from him. I waited until he finished, then I said his name. He looked at me still smiling. I told him I needed to say something, and I needed him to hear it properly. The table shifted. My wife found my hand under the table. My uncle put his fork down. I told my dad he was a terrible father. Not that he'd made mistakes, not that we'd had a difficult relationship, that he was a terrible father. I told him I'd come to him at 16 about something serious, and he told me to toughen up, and I'd never come to him about anything again, because that's what you learn when the person who's supposed to be safe isn't. That I had a 4-year-old son, and I'd not once made him feel like a burden for having feelings because I'd grown up knowing exactly what the alternative felt like. That I was done sitting at family tables watching him perform a version of fatherhood he'd never actually shown up for. My dad's smile had gone. He said I was embarrassing my grandma on her birthday. I told him I was telling the truth at her birthday and those were different things. My grandma reached over and put her hand on my arm, not to stop me, just to say she was there. My dad said I'd always been too sensitive. I told him he'd said that when I was 16 and it hadn't been true then either. My uncle quietly said his name. My dad looked at him and then back at me and then at his plate. I told him I didn't want contact after today, that he could come to family occasions and I'd be civil because I loved my grandma, but I was done pretending between occasions that we had a relationship worth maintaining. He didn't say anything. That silence was the most honest thing he'd offered me in 31 years. My wife drove us home. She didn't say anything for a while. Then she said Finn was lucky. I told her I was just trying to be what I needed when I was 16. She held my hand across the gear stick the whole way home. Subscribe for more stories.